So here we are, chapter 3 of the Gospel of John. And this chapter is divided in two sections here in the New King James Version, that this is the one that I'm using. And the first section being verses 1 through 21, it talks about the new birth. So this is a conversation that Jesus is having with the Pharisee Nicodemus, who is a teacher of the law. Okay. And one of the things that Jesus is telling him, you have to be born again. And Nicodemus, well, his question was, how can a man be born when he is old? And Jesus was speaking to him, right, knowing that he is a teacher of the law, knew every letter of the law, but yet could not comprehend what Jesus was explaining to him. So us humans, we love reason and logic. We do. We love the cause and effect, the legitimacy of what we can touch and see with our abilities. In our sometimes too much knowledge is our own disadvantage because we are not open to learning new things. So, but the things, spiritual things and heavenly things, those are to be understood only in the spirit and not by human reasoning. So we have to be born of water, right? Leaving the old man behind and now living a new life. And then we are now adorned by the Spirit who is poured into our hearts, being transformed in our mind, in our hearts, and in our spirit, so we can enter the kingdom of God. This is what Jesus was trying to explain to Nicodemus, but it was hard for him to really grasp it and understand what he was saying. Now, the verses 14 through 17, which refer to a time when Moses was leading the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. And in one of the occasions where they were murmuring, right, grumbling before the Lord and against Moses and against God and wanting to return to Egypt, which that is in Numbers 21, 4 through 9. And basically, the Lord, because of their grumbling, because of their murmuring against God and against Moses, the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many died. But at the same time, God still wanted to make a way for them, right? So Moses pleaded with God, and God told him, hey, put up this bronze serpent, and who looks at it, who has been bitten by a serpent, who looks at it will be healed, will live. So here Jesus is saying, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. And it's the same way, like that bronze serpent was to be able to give people life, a way back to life. And this is the same thing with Jesus. Jesus was lifted up, crucified, so we could have a way back to life in him. And it's just the mercy of God. God's still looking for a way for us, humanity, for his creation, to return to him, to become children of God once again. And then in verses 19 through 21, where it talks about the light and the darkness, when we believe we have accepted now the light, which is Jesus, right? We no longer walk in darkness, and our deeds are seen in the light. Why? Because we are to represent the character of Christ, right? And our deeds are not done with self-ambition. So they are done from a pure heart. And that's the reason why when you're walking in darkness, you don't want to walk in the light, because then your deeds will be seen, and they will be seen with what intentions they're being done with, right? Okay, so let's move on to John the Baptist exalts Jesus. And these are verses 27 to 30. And I'm going to read to you guys real quick the New Living Translation, just because it's really, it's you can understand it easily. It says, John replied, and now this is after the disciples were wondering, why are people going to get baptized by Jesus and not coming to John the Baptist? So John replied, no one can receive anything unless God gives it from heaven. It says, you yourselves know how plainly I told you, I am not the Messiah. I am only here to prepare the way for him. It is the bridegroom who marries the bride, and the bridegroom's friend is simply glad to stand with him and hear his vows. Therefore, I am filled with joy at his success. And it says, he must become greater and greater, and I must become less and less. I love how plainly that is said. New King James Version can be a little bit more complicated, but here we see how he says, he again makes sure. He says, I have told you, I am not the Messiah. I'm just here to prepare the way. Then he says, I am only the bridegroom's friend. And he is filled with joy at Jesus' success. And he recognizes that he must decrease so Jesus can increase. Why? Because he understood his purpose. It wasn't about him, it was about Jesus. And he was there to open the way for other people to be able to come to Jesus. He was there to prepare the way for him. So the same way that we nowadays, we share the gospel, we talk about Christ, we share our testimonies of what God has done in our lives and what has happened in our lives once we've accepted Jesus in our lives. That's us preparing the way for people to be able to come to Christ, right? So it's not about us, it's about Jesus. It's about God receiving all the glory. Okay. And we need to have that purpose very clear in our minds, because we ourselves can wrap ourselves with pride just because we've somewhat accomplished something, when that's not it. It's not about us, it's about Christ. It's about God receiving the glory. And the same way that John understood his purpose here on earth, we need to understand that too. It will keep us grounded. And also, just a side note, I mean, we should celebrate our brothers and sisters in their growth in God. So we can't become like the prodigal son's brother who becomes envious. Instead of rejoicing, he's grumbling and wondering, like, why haven't you done this for me? Because the father threw a feast for his son that was lost. So we need to rejoice with our brothers and sisters when they come. If someone has come after you, rejoice when you see their growth and they're striving to be able to fulfill the purpose that God has in their lives. So this is what I got from chapter 3 of the Gospel of John, and I pray that you guys have taken a moment to read it, and that it has blessed you as much as it has blessed me, and even more so. So we'll see you next week for chapter 4 of the Gospel of John. Thank you. Bye. God bless.